Hello and welcome to the Stateside Soccer Show. My name is Jordan, and with me, as always, through this journey of Major League Soccer previews is Logan Stump. How are you doing, Logan?
Oh, Jordan, I can see I went to the eye doctor today. And honestly, you haven't looked better, Jordan. You honestly haven't. You look good in your pink
Oh,
kit. We were just talking
thanks.
about this off air. You look good. You got the pink kit, kind of a foreshadow of who we're covering today. But man, you look
Yeah,
sharp in that. I wish I was you. Yeah.
thanks. I do. Everyone wishes they were me. I'm just kidding. I
I
don't
was
want
gonna
to
say
sound
you're
that
you're the most
conceited on.
humble person I know. I don't. That doesn't sound right coming out of your mouth. You are not one to brag.
All right. Well, yes, we are going to be previewing Inter Miami. Of course, they're the only team that wears pink in Major League Soccer. Um, how are you today though?
Yeah.
Doing good other than your
Otherwise,
sight?
yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I had a busy week at work, but that busy week is coming to an end as we are sitting here on Friday Eve. I don't know when people are listening to this,
Yeah,
but
Friday
yeah,
Junior.
it's
Yeah.
it's great. I love Thursday. I think I've told you this before. So I think it's my favorite day of the week. Yeah,
Last week,
it's my favorite day of the week.
last episode, not last episode, two
There it
episodes
is.
ago. Yes.
So I'll continue to say it. But how you doing? I didn't ask you. How are you?
That's why I asked you again, is because I want
You're on a roll today.
um, no, no, I'm doing well. I started watching that Super League show on Apple Plus. So, and I finished watching Beckham on Netflix. So,
Thinking about
going through my
you thinking about
series.
joining Super League? Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
good thought.
actually, the Stateside Soccer Show is joining the Super League. No promotion relegation on this podcast. Um, but no, what I was going to say too is that, you know what's funny? I had this thought the other day when I was just thinking about it, like thinking about the Super League and stuff. But like, you know, they show kind of like what it means to smaller clubs and all that. And I was thinking, you know, if U.S. soccer had taken off like back in the day, like when they first were around, like when it first started and stuff, I would probably have like a small club like down the street, you know, because like England has like clubs. I was gonna say out the ass,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
they're everywhere. There's like 20 in London, you know. Um, I would probably have one like right here in my little town, and I would definitely have one in Baltimore. But you know, that could either get promoted or relegated, and you'd actually have a chance of trophies and stuff like that. So I was thinking like, whoa, what a weird alternate universe that would have been. But that's not what it is, and we're talking about MLS now. So that's what we're going to be focusing on. I would love to read like a novel of like a alternate universe of
Oh,
that,
that's
but
Jordan. We could do that for a fun episode. We could do a what if MLS just edition. Right
what
there,
if
you go.
MLS?
Love it.
Um, yeah, we got a lot of fun ideas that'll
Yeah,
be
we do.
coming down the pipe here. But we will be joined by Alex Windley shortly, who covers Inter Miami. Do we want to cut to the interview first, or do we want to talk Toronto since they were
We got to
bottom
go with
first?
Toronto, I think, and then we'll cut. So, spoiler alert. We'll get there. Not spoiler alert. What am I trying to say? Hang in there. I don't know. I don't know. I ran out of
Okay,
words. Yes.
ran out of words. Okay, we're going to Toronto then. So we'll kick off Toronto. If you missed our last episode, it was bottom five of the West. This week is This episode is bottom five of the East. So we will start with Toronto, who was the wooden spoon winner of Major League Soccer. Is that a
Are we allowed to
thing?
call them winners?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is that a thing? Can I
Recipients?
say winners of the wooden spoon? Recipients is probably the accurate wording there. Um, so much so they fired their manager, right? And we are going to be getting Jonathan Herdman, who left Canada, who's got a whole bunch of their own stuff going on right now. Apparently, their TV rights are up in the air now for the Canadian
Yeah.
national team. A lot of weird stuff going on there. But Toronto finished bottom of the East, and they finished bottom of the league, 22 points, which is 0.65 points per game. They had 4 wins all season long with 20 losses and 10 draws. But yeah, so they bring in Herdman as their coach. I think that's probably a good move, but we'll talk about it here. I guess Bob Bradley was, of course, fired mid-season, and they bring in an interim coach. Michael Bradley left. He's now with his dad at Staubach. And yeah, I mean, we went into the last season talking about how this team could be special with their signings. I still kept them at 7. You put them at 6, so we weren't high on them. But you're talking about players like Insigne and Bernardeschi. What, total of 9 goals between them?
Yeah.
Insigne played 20 games. Bernardeschi played 31. Not really a great season for Toronto. I mean, obviously, but I mean, from their DPs, that was the big thing. We thought, oh, they're bringing in 2 like big Italian guys that are going to help this team. And they just really didn't help the team. And in fact, they may have split the team, because that was some of the reporting when it came to Bob Bradley, getting fired.
Yeah, it's interesting because, and kind of jumping forward a little bit, but also talking about the past, it's interesting because when John Herdman was hired, there's actually a quote of him saying, the staff have come in with the mentality that our job is to improve what's there, to create the high performance culture, to set clear tactical framework where people are motivated, fully aligned about resurrecting this team. Jordan, you know what that says to me? That this team is currently still a hot mess express. And last year we talked about it. I think there were reports that Bernardeschi and them were smoking in the locker room at some point, that they were having or they were missing practices. Bob Bradley lost control of the locker room. It became Michael versus the rest, because obviously which son is going to turn on his father. Bob Bradley having all this experience. Bob Bradley's not really known as being the most cool-headed of managers. If you ever watch the LAFC documentary that's on ESPN, he rules kind of old school. It's kind of like with that iron fist. I think he's part of that old school group. He's good with players, but I would say he's a lot more strict. He demands a ton physically. And I'm starting to think Bernardeschi and Insigne showed up thinking this was going to be like a vacation. And we talked a ton about this, where it seems like there is a certain group of players that come over from the other countries in Europe. Yes,
Big
thank you. That take this as well, we didn't know the league was going to be this hard. And it's getting harder, right? So when these players are coming over, Jordan, it's no longer, which I love what Busquets and Suarez and them have come in. Suarez said it. Busquets has said it. The young kid from Argentina that signed with Seattle, I forget the name off the top of my head right now. I think it's La Vega or De Vega. He just said that he came here because everybody in the world that he's played with in the U22s and stuff like that are talking about this league. And here we are, John Herdman coming in from international play, Jordan, where when you're on an international level, you're playing for your life, right? You're playing for that spot in the World Cup team. And John Herdman's got a task ahead of him, because last year, Jordan, they were a disaster. And they're pretty much the same team, a little bit worse, I think, off now that Michael's gone, because they don't have that leadership anymore.
And you were referencing Pedro de la Vega, the Argentine, who is now Seattle's number 10. And we'll preview that as we get closer to, of course, the top of the table in the West. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to buy into the hype again, but I might. We'll talk about it when we do our season preview, because I do think Herdman will bring some sort of more stability to it. I think part of the reason why it wasn't working as well with the Italians, why they didn't respect Bradley, is because they also see, Michael Bradley is there, and they, Bob is at that point so far out of his managerial game when it comes to national team. Herdman stepping right out from it. Canada was the best in the federation leading into the World Cup. World Cup they did not show as well. So maybe he'll get a little bit more respect than Bob Bradley did, but I wouldn't also be shocked if at some point they move on from these Italians, or, I don't know. I mean, so if we're grading last year, right? this has to be like the worst grade you can possibly
Yeah.
give it, right? Like this has to be
They got held back. Like they're
an
held
F.
back. They're being held back right now. That's what I give them. F minus, held back. Parents coming in. Got to have a conference. John Herdman's the dad. He's not happy, right? It just feels like that, right? Like it
This
feels
metaphor's falling apart.
they're falling apart, man. Um, yeah, I'm gonna give them F minus. What are you giving them? F minus?
Yeah, if that's a
Yeah.
thing, right? I think we gave it to somebody before, but yeah, we'll go F minus. When you get the wooden spoon, you're done, right? Especially when you had a team. It was
Yeah.
expectation. The expectations for this team should have been higher, and Toronto is a team that spends. Their ownership spends. It just didn't work out, and it fell apart. And I feel like they brought in a good hire with Jonathan Herdman, and now it's like, can he make this turn around a bit? That's what I see for last year. Last year was just an absolute awful season. You didn't get production. You ended up in last place. You fired your coach. You hired Herdman at the end of the season, but you didn't even bring him on until the beginning of the season, which is probably the best move, honestly. I think I may have thought otherwise last year, but I think now I'm like, yeah, let him get a fresh start and not come in the middle of the cluster, and kind of get a fresh start here. Okay, so if we're looking at 2024, they have a new coach. They have some players that maybe they can build around. Sean Johnson went there, right? Sometime in the middle of last season or before the season. I don't even remember now. They had they got Latif Blessing, right? I think middle of the season he left. So they have some players that they can still build around that are not the DPs, right? They've only added one player right now, which is Davy Flores, 9 goals and 4 assists in 233 matches at the Honduran side Motagua. I mean, he also played in Vancouver, but I mean, he started his career at Motagua. They really haven't done much though, right? Like I feel like this is, like you said earlier, pretty much the same side that you're hoping just gets the new manager boost for a while.
Yeah, and they really struggled to score. Their lead striker is DeAndre Kerr, who really started to impress. Like he I thought played pretty well last season. It sounds like Bernardeschi too. On Twitter, I saw that there were links to him. I think Lazio was interested. His return to Italy, which makes all the sense in the world. It frees up a DP spot, and I think it gets rid of the big headache. I don't think Insigne is as much of a headache as Bernardeschi had been, from everything that was written. I know I think Insigne's concern was more of he was a star player and really the more household name than Bernardeschi was. And he came over and it just didn't pan out well with Bob. And I think that's where they started to collide, is because Bernardeschi, I'm zoomed out. I'm out of focus. Look at me go. But you don't need to see me anyway. But yeah, no,
I think that's just your eyesight
tell me
going
that.
bad again. You look clear to me.
Don't tell me that. But yeah, Jordan, we were excited about this team, but their whole defense needs a reboot. They don't really have any starting, like any starting defenders. Right back, left back need. They need a left center back. That's a huge need, and they've got money, like you said. They've got a lot of money. They can spend it, but I think ultimately this Toronto team is really going to struggle because I think they've got some leftover pieces that they've got to cut loose before they can start to get better.
Okay, so if we're giving any sort of expectations for Toronto going into this year, what would those be? Because I think for me here, it is like successful season for Toronto is some sort of improvement, right? So not last, right, is probably what I'd say. You can't finish bottom. A successful season, you should be showing some market improvement. Now, of course, I think some Toronto fans would say, obviously, we want to be wild card, fighting for the wild card. I think that'd be a successful season. Of course, anything above bottom is probably good, but you also don't want to be like not bottom by like 1 point, right? Like you want to be safely fighting for the wild card, but I think it's fine if they don't make it in there, right? Like they need some sort of maybe I'm marking them a little lower than what Toronto fans would say, but I think you need some sort of just growth that you look at, especially if they do end up moving on from one or both of the Italians. It's like, okay, then you're gonna have to replace them. Then that person's gonna have to get used to the league. We know how long it can take for some players to adjust to the league when they come in the summer. So I don't know. I would say just don't finish bottom.
We saw what John Hardman could do in CONCACAF region. He absolutely dominated it. Really brought Canada onto the scene for their first time. And I think, they struggled in the World Cup, but I think that was just because the lights are a little bit brighter and they had a tough group. I think he's a great coach. He could outcoach Greg Berhalter every day. And Greg did really well in this league. So I've gotten a ton of confidence in John Herdman. Jordan, I think the only issue is they're playing in the conference that is the premier conference now. They're playing up against teams that, looking above them, Inter Miami, completely gone. Like they're going to be out of their view. Chicago Fire, I think they're contenders. Here we go again. But I think Chicago Fire are contenders for the wooden spoon. DC United, I think, are just they're a couple players away from being a little bit better and could chase playoffs. They just need a little bit. They're a little stale. NYCFC, I think they're a player or two away from being contenders in the playoffs. CF Montreal, they're usually pretty decent, right?
Yeah. Here's the thing, right? If we're looking at the standings, they had 22 points. All right. Miami had 34. That's 12 points more. And that's without half a season of Messi and gang. Okay.
Yeah.
So they're going to be higher than that, Miami. All right. Which puts Chicago as the next highest team at 40. That's an 18 point swing that they have to improve by to not be last in the East. Now, of course, you're thinking, well, maybe Chicago will be a little worse. Maybe DC or NYCFC will fall down a little bit. But Toronto could be in real trouble of finishing bottom of the East again. Like you said, they're in the tougher conference. I think we're now starting to think the East is tougher, especially when you look at overall supporter shield standings. It was like, it was the first like 5 teams were all okay, the first 3 teams are East, then it was 1 West, and then the next 2 East again before you get to Seattle. That's crazy. So when you're looking at this, Toronto is in a very real possibility of staying bottom because of how terrible they finished. And the fact is they made 1 different signing and then, of course, a coach. I don't know. That's going to be really tough for them to overcome, I think.
Yeah, and the leaks of their jerseys say FTC, and you can fill in the blanks there. F this club. Because I think we did. We gave them an F, Jordan. We F'd them.
Yep, we F'd them. F minus them. So your successful season was what again?
Successful season is not finished last. Yeah, you stole mine. That was a great one because it's a legitimate concern that I have. I really do think that they're on par to be the worst team in the league again. Crazy.
So we know this is not a group of nice guys because nice guys do finish last. Yeah. So they got to be not nice guys. Okay. Not too much to talk about Toronto right now. Again, just want to clarify, we're not locking anything in right here. If they make any sort of big moves or changes, we'll talk about it in our season preview, which happens right before the kickoff to the season. It'll be that week. We'll give out our predictions. This is last year's predictions. We'll do all of that then. So right now, because I know, I think Rapids are already now talking about signing another defensive midfielder. We didn't cover that in the last episode. If they do sign him, that'll be something we bring up in the following, the season preview, not one of these other previews that we're doing. Because we have to do 5 clubs.
It's January. What it is? January 25th. So anything after, I would say even the 24th, because that's when I typically finish the notes completely. I don't really, unless it's like a big deal, I'll mention it because it catches my mind. And I have the transfer thing up, so I try to keep track. But usually the notes are done about a day before. So it's usually like the day before. And like Jordan said, it's hard to do all the teams and keep up with all the moving pieces this time of year because of how short the offseason is now. So
yeah, it seems like there's usually 1 week of business that goes crazy, like this week was. And then probably next week will be more of that, and then it'll kind of ramp up even more. So it'll be hard to kind of keep up. We have to start these ahead of time so that way we get them finished by the end of the season, by the end of the preseason. So that's why we're kind of some of this stuff is, we're hesitant with this and all that. Okay. Let's go ahead and welcome in our guest. We are having Alex Windley join us, who covers Inter Miami. We're going to have about a 15-minute conversation with her. Would have loved to talk to her more. She did have somewhere to go, so if you listen to that and then tweet at us afterwards, why didn't you ask this? We were kind of pressed for time, so that's that. We'll hopefully get her on in the course of the season and be able to dive in even more with Inter Miami, because I do think that's the club everybody's going to want to talk about. I'm sorry.
It's going to hog a lot of time.
And if you're complaining about that, I don't know what to tell you. This is why you bring Messi over, okay? Is to get the eyes on the league and the eyes on the team. I mean, they shot up Instagram followers as soon as he signed. So people are going to talk about them. And we're going to want to talk about them too, because they're just so much fun. Okay. So let's go ahead and welcome in our guest. And then after we're done talking with Alex, we'll come back and then we will share our report card grade for last season. And then we'll see what we think a successful season for Miami is. And we are back. And this time we are welcoming Alex Windley. How are you today, Alex? Sorry, I get you mid-drink. I'm so sorry.
No, yeah, it's my fault for drinking mid-intro. I'm so sorry. But yeah, I'm doing well, guys. How are you guys?
I'm doing well. I should have drawn that a little bit more.
George's let's get right into it. No.
Let's get right into it. No, but it's good to have you back on. Where can people find your current work? We'll also ask you again at the end, but just want to get it off the top here.
Yeah, right now I'm on Substack at the Heron's Nest. So basically theheronsnest.substack.com. Basically anything. Basically, it's just a stream of consciousness of mine about the team, really. Basically my thoughts, opinions, analysis, reports. I do get, quotes from Tata Martino or whenever I'm there at practice. So basically, if you want to keep up to date with Inter Miami and literally everything that the fans are talking, discussing, follow me on my Substack at the Heron's Nest.
Awesome. Logan, you want to hit the first question?
So, Alex, we haven't talked to you since, obviously, there's been a lot going on with Miami. And so I wanted to just get your thoughts on Messi madness. I mean, it's the talk of town. Jordan and I, reflecting back on 2023, you bring over Lionel Messi, and that was the story. It's the highlight for probably world soccer. I mean, it was a big story, big time. And Jordan and I were excited to just kind of get your thoughts on 2023 as a whole, and just what Messi meant to last season, because it really does seem like it's taken this to a whole different level, and we're finally to that point in the league where we're getting these superstars, and probably the one that's probably been the best to ever do it.
Yeah, honestly, when at first I thought, the initial reports about him signing with the team, I thought it was someone trolling again, because I know Miami, they've been linked to a bunch of, Edison Cavani,
Right.
David Silva initially, way back in the beginning. So, none of them were concrete until I think Higuain and Matuidi, which, they're good in their own right, but they weren't good except for Higuain during that last season, during their time at Inter Miami. So when Messi actually signed, I was just in shock that number one, Miami put a compelling enough bid out there that Messi was swayed enough to come to the States and start this new chapter. Additionally, it wasn't just Messi, it was Busquets, and then Alba came, and now you have Suarez coming just based off honestly, it's mainly for Messi, but the new experiences here playing in the States, and it just honestly feels surreal. I'm still confused to why he chose MLS in Miami, but like I think the Moss Bros, they did a really good job at convincing Messi that he'd be the face of the sport. And in the U.S., honestly, and everything that he does, it's amplified 10 times more than I thought it would be. And I don't know if you guys saw the Sportico article about club evaluations. I think Miami, they're past the billion mark now, so it just feels really surreal. And then when he came and started playing for the club and the Cruz Azul game, I was there in the audience when he scored that free kick winner, and I have the video on my phone, and every other day I watch it because I'm just like, wow, that's like the craziest way to introduce yourself. But yeah, and then he went on that run with the Leagues Cup and brought Miami their first ever trophy. A shame they couldn't make the playoffs, but I understand it. But it just still feels so surreal, and the fact that we're heading into that second season now with him on the team, yeah, let's see how much more they can do, really.
Yeah, how big was the trophy for Miami fans? Because, I would say in the year building up to this, they were kind of seen as a laughing stock a bit, right? Of, oh, they're Beckham's team. They, the joke always about how many DPs they had, right? And then just the fact that they were still like bad. They were still bad even when they had all those DPs. And it's just like, then they immediately catapult to a trophy, Leagues Cup, which in my mind, as a Philadelphia Union fan, I'm like already envious of Miami. They did it in so much shorter time. Union got to finals, they lose them. It's just, like how much did this put them on the map, not just with Messi, but the fact that he was able to win a trophy in that first month.
Yeah, and I will say about the Union, a lot of Miami fans wish that I know Miami has a good academy as well, but the Union, their academy is top, and a lot of Miami fans are envious of that, how you guys are able to churn out academy products like nothing, and all of them are good. So that's definitely an envious point right there. But yeah, I think for the fans, it was surreal, because before that, I think you guys were pretty. You guys know that the Miami as a team was not good under Phil Neville, and I know there were injuries to Gregory and Jean Mota and a lot of the starters, but still, even before that, I know they made the playoffs in 2022, but it was more so Higuain playing better and Pozuelo coming in the second half and kind of catapulting the team into that. So Phil Neville was good for the period in time he was there, but he wasn't able to elevate that team. So then when he got sacked, Tata came in, and then Messi coming in and immediately going and becoming, winning a trophy. And I think during that time, there were people discussing if Miami can go and win MLS Cup. And I thought that was too much because the roster was depleted and the guys were tired. But yeah, it was just insane and crazy. And I think that run means so much to the organization and the fans, because, we all thought that Miami would have, a couple of years before they start challenging for trophies seriously. Many thought that, it would have to wait until they got to Miami Freedom Park down here in proper Miami, where they play in Fort Lauderdale. But Messi coming in, and it just shows why he's considered one of the greatest footballers of all time. The fact that he was able to elevate everyone, including Busquets and Alba, they were there too, and the young guys coming through like Kremeski playing so well during that run. It was magic, honestly. It was just crazy to witness, and even the final was just insane, and the missed goals and the missed penalties and Drake Callender doing Drake Callender things. Yeah. It's just insane.
I think that Leagues Cup final is one of the greatest MLS games, if you can count it as an MLS game. One of the best games, including MLS teams, I guess you could say, because that was just wild. And then go to penalties with the goalkeepers and such. That was just absolutely amazing. But you mentioned them. You mentioned Busquets, Suarez, and Alba, and their impact on the team. So far, we don't know Suarez's impact on the team, but I guess, do you see them kind of replicating that a bit this season? Because like you said, Messi's impact is the trophy, but also he brought those players there. They're not signing for Miami, right? If he's not there. So, and I guess along with that, do you just have like any idea on how big this window is? Is it like a 2-year window for them to win something? Like win an
I
MLS
think
Cup?
so. I think the club wants it to be, but I also think that they've signed young players like Facu Farias, who got injured, and Thomas Avilas and Diego Gomez, who's in good form right now, including, you have the academy kids who are coming up and coming through. And I don't know if you guys saw the links. Miami's trying to get, Christian Medina from Boca Juniors, and he's only 21 years old. So I think, yes, there is this 2-year window where Miami are expected to challenge for at least MLS Cup, but at the same time, the front office knows that even post Messi and friends, they're going to need a plan, and I think that's why they signed a lot of these young guys. They signed even more academy products over this offseason. Tyler Hall, Israel Boatwright, Santiago Morales, who are these super young kids, 16, 17, 18, 19, which will probably be the foundation for the club. The club going forward after Messi and Suarez and them, they all leave or retire. So I do think there's a plan. Of course, they're going to always be linked. Already I see some people clamoring for Neymar and Antoine Griezmann and all those guys. But yes, this is a 2-year window. But at the same time, I think Miami are also looking towards that future, and hopefully some of the academy kids and these younger talented players that they signed will be able to take them there as well.
Yeah. So, and you mentioned, and well, one thing I wanted to add to that too is like, I think it's interesting, Jordan and I've talked about this, is that because that window is so, like, it's almost like it's hard to see out of, because it's to a point where I think Messi, right, was talked about being retired the next time a World Cup came. And now that it's in the United States, he's playing in the United States, that window seemed to get wider of like, how much longer could he continue to do so and play at a high level and play for an Argentinian team? Because I don't think, right, he's not announced yet an official retirement from world football, I think, or international play.
Well, I think so here's a funny thing. I was just
Yeah.
watching the Captains of the World on Netflix, and he says in that it's his last go with the World Cup. But I wouldn't be shocked if he changes his mind. He had retired from the national team before and came back. And it's like, I was talking to my friend about it. I think him and Ronaldo are going to push to be in 2026. I just think they will, because they're still playing and being really fit,
Yeah, and I think honestly, the Messi, he came into this off season or preseason, excuse me, super fit. I think, I don't know where this quote come from. I have to source it, but I believe someone said this is like the fittest he's ever looked coming into a preseason. So he's taking this seriously. And honestly, with Messi's playing style now, he's not he's not running past players like he used to like 10 years ago, but honestly, if he keeps himself fit and he's still playing at this level, he could probably play for Argentina in 2026. He doesn't have anything else to prove, but it wouldn't shock me that if he did, honestly. And honestly, that'd be cool for the United States and MLS as a whole, if they have World Cup winner, a player of their own playing a World Cup in the United States. So that would be a marketing dream for a lot of people. But yeah, I generally I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah, I know the United States is calling up going, hey, you're going to play in 2026. Like, please play.
We need eyes on
Right,
the league.
something.
Yeah.
At least stand out there. But yeah, it was interesting because I wanted to get your thoughts on that before we kind of moved on. But yeah, so if you'll just talk a little bit about the impact that Faris had, just the entry, and then going forward into the season, what it could do to Inter Miami.
Yeah, with Facu, as soon as he went down, honestly, I knew it was his knee, because it looked very similar to the Neymar injury where his foot was planted and his knee shifted forward. So I knew it was going to be bad. But yeah, it's unfortunate because Facu was a player that was going to take up a lot of minutes, and when Messi's gone with Argentina, and Facu was going to be that not replacement, but just sort of that number 10 when Messi's not there. And now with him out, I think Miami will push harder for either a Christian Medina from Boca Juniors or an Augustin Pavlacino from River Plate, which they were pushing for on loan, but I think that kind of stalled a little bit. So now I think guys like Robert Taylor and Corentin Jean, who's coming back from a knee injury, coincidentally, sort of like Farias, will probably take those minutes of Messi when Messi's gone. And there's no replacement for Messi, but yeah, like Miami, it's a blow, and it's really unfortunate because he was going to get significant minutes. So yeah, regarding this, I don't have any news to report, but I know Miami's going to push to probably get another midfielder or attacking player on that roster, and to hopefully soften the blow of Faku getting injured.
All right, to send you off here, expectations for this club in 2024. What is a successful season for Miami this year?
Well, I guess the bare minimum is making the playoffs because if they don't do that, obviously heads will need to roll and people will need to be fired because that's crazy. But I think the minimum, they definitely want to challenge for MLS Cup. Obviously, I think every team wants that. I know the organization wants to try to go for CONCACAF Champions Cup, which is going to be very difficult, honestly, with a lot of those bigger Mexican sides who spend a little bit more and have bigger rosters in terms of just the money that they push pour into the rosters. I do think it'll be difficult, but for Miami, I think MLS Cup, a decent run, the Champions Cup, maybe a U.S. Open Cup. Like a redo from the terrible final they played last season, which the Dynamo completely deserved because Miami was super underprepared and they didn't take it seriously, in my opinion. But yeah, I think MLS Cup, Champions Cup will be the two trophies that mainly they will start to push after.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Alex, for coming on. Can you just say one more time where people can find your stuff?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter or X at AAW_1998 and my Substack at theheronsnest.substack.com.
All right. Thank you, Alex, again for jumping on the show. Can't wait to have you back on again. Logan, where is Miami at here? Don't say Florida. I know it's there.
I was
I mean,
literally
like,
about to say
where?
Florida. It's like 3 hours south of me.
Walk me through it. What's your thoughts on this Miami team?
First, I want to give kudos to Alex. She's probably one of my favorite people to follow. And if you're not following her and you want, and I know a lot of people like Jordan mentioned before we jumped into the preview, if you want to follow this team, she is the best place to go. She's a lot of fun to follow. She's got great insights. She's got a good sense of humor about it. And we really do appreciate you jumping on, Alex. Sorry for our delay. That's our problem. So, but yeah, Jordan, I think you asked like kind of what the report card grade would be. I feel, I'm looking at this team, right, and it's hard to give a report card anything other than an A+, and just because of the signings that they've given.
I was going to say the same, and I worry we sound homerish on that. We're not even Miami fans, but I'm saying
I'm an Orlando fan. Like, that would be completely false.
I know. I just feel like people will be like, well, just because of Messi, but like
A+
they
signing.
won a trophy.
Right.
They won a trophy. They bring
That's
in
true.
Messi. They bring in Alba and Busquets. They are now like one of the most followed teams in the league. That has to be an A+, right?
Yeah. And they were really pushing towards the playoffs and then realized, what, it's not worth making.
And they had injury. Like,
yes, the future of
Messi got injured a bit, and they didn't want to ruin that.
Yes. And that's where, like, sure, we can give it an A-, but seriously, they belong in the A category just because, Jordan, that never happens. Jordan, they were bottom of the league when he came in. They were in a really big hole. Maybe not bottom because Toronto was so bad, but they were in such a large hole, Jordan, and to come in and win a tournament and win a trophy, it blows my mind. Like, I can't imagine any other player doing that. Like, it would take a very special player to come in and completely change the landscape of a league as you know it. Like, I don't care who it is, what league it is. He is the greatest player of all time. He came in to a team that I think a lot of people were shocked he came to the United States at first. It was like, whoa, this is different. And Jordan, we had better TV results and ratings. We had the most people subscribed to Apple TV. Their Instagram followers, I think, are way above 1 million now. Like, no MLS club can touch them as far as the amount of, like, look at all the Messi kits that show up to these international games they're getting ready to play. Like, it is insane that, Jordan, one of our clubs is going to be on a world stage and he's going to be playing against Cristiano Ronaldo and a crazy game in the Middle East. He's going to Asia, and all the Asian fans are probably going to be wearing his kit. Like, it's just massive. So to not give this grade an A, it would
15.9 million followers on Instagram. I think when they got to 8 million, they were the most followed sports team or something in America, I believe.
Yeah,
But I
it's
might
more
be
than
wrong
all
on
the
that, but I thought I saw that.
it's more than all the NBA teams, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it can do. So it's got to be an A plus, right? Again,
Yeah.
maybe you could say A, B plus if they didn't win League's Cup, but the fact they won a trophy, they got to an Open Cup final. They were pushing for the playoffs. They made those big signings that have completely changed their team. It's an A plus. I agree with you. And now expectations are rising rapidly here. But let's get into some of their signings they made, because you know what? This team got even stronger. So they lose Joseph, right? They bring in Luis Suarez. He's ready to just chow down on this league. He is like the cookie monster in front of goal. He is going for it. Now, I know people keep bringing up stuff about his knees and such, but we'll see how it works out. We'll see how he does. Then, if that wasn't enough, they bring in Julian Gressel, who just won it all with Columbus. He's been around the league a bit. And they add Gressel, and I think that is a fantastic signing. It is something that he was with Tata when he was at Atlanta. So Tata knows Julian Gressel. Gressel knows Tata. I think that is huge when you're looking at. We always talk about making signings and foreign signings and stuff, but you also have to have these interleague transfers, interleague signings, free agents that end up pushing the needle a bit, right? Players that have been in this league and know how to win in this league. And Julian Gressel, I think, is a really great example of that. So him going to Miami adds them with even more depth. I mean, I'm looking at their depth chart and I'm just thinking, wow, I think that this team is going to be, of course, very, very good. What are your thoughts on Julian Gressel signing and the Luis Suarez signing?
I love the Luis Suarez signing, and I've tweeted about this multiple times, and we're not one to really argue with on Twitter. We'll of course have the debate and discussion, but I did see a lot of like his knees problems. If you go back and look at his game log, he doesn't miss games. So I don't understand. Like I guess maybe he's not as productive as he once was because he was a world talent, Jordan. Like he was the top 5 talent at one point in his career when he was with Liverpool, when he was taking bites out his shoulder. Like he was a premier player. Like people in the world wanted Luis Suarez. The fact that he's in MLS playing with Messi, who's one of his best friends, and just watching the link up between the two against that Dallas team and the passes that go between him and Messi and Busquets, it's like watching an art form. Because they know each other so like they are 3 of the best friends, and if Neymar was added, then you would have something crazy. I don't know anything. Nobody knows anything. Who knows what happens with Neymar's contracts and stuff like that. But the fact that this team was able to add one of the best strikers that's played in all of world football is amazing. And Julian Gressel, and you and I have talked about. Oh, look, there's that fun emoji thing again. But look, guys, I can do the heart, and it does the heart thing. I didn't do it. But no, the fact that they added Julian Gressel, you and I talk about how much we love Julian Gressel quite frequently whenever he comes up in conversation. So it's amazing that they go and added him. Gregory's coming back from injury. The fact that Gregory isn't going to be a starting defensive midfielder is nuts off of his knee injury. I think the fact that Julian Gressel will have to share the field and sit some. Kramashi is going to have to sit some. Like that's insane. There's not been a team, Jordan, I don't think that has ever looked like this on paper. Logistically, you look at it and go, they could beat every single team they play this year. I'm not saying they're going to, because that's impossible, because things will happen. But I would have them as favorites every time they touch the pitch.
They're favorites on DraftKings. I was just looking.
Are they?
I think they had them at like plus 300 as like the most favored to win. So take for that what you will. I think MLS is so hard to actually, if you're going to bet on anything, I think MLS is so hard to do that. So I would not recommend that at all because I feel like it's never the team that you think is going to win. I don't know how many people would have had Columbus winning it all. But no, yeah, I mean, yeah, they're plus 350. That is the lowest on here. The next highest is LAFC with plus 600. So, and I don't really gamble, so I have no clue what some of that stuff means. But if you are somebody out there, there you go. That's your odds. So I guess the Vegas thinks that it's Inter Miami's and LAFC's to lose here. Which would be a wild final, by the way. Miami and LAFC, especially if they re-sign Carlos Vela. That could be an interesting final.
Yeah, and they've cut a lot of people loose. They've got a couple DP spots available, I believe. This could get fun if LAFC decides they want to pony up.
LAFC was hinting at that. We're not covering them right now, but they were hinting that they have some big stuff coming. So, yeah, I do think that maybe LAFC will reload here. Okay. What is a successful season for this club? Now, Alex said bare minimum playoffs, maybe challenge for MLS Cup. They want to try to get CCC, not CCL anymore, it's CCC. I think that might be too much for them, just in the sense of challenging with some of these older players on multiple fronts like this. But I think a successful season is top 4 of the East. I think some people might say, well, with all this talent, but they haven't shown it in the league yet. So I will say, if they can get like top 4, maybe make a run Supporter Shield wise, challenging for the Supporter Shield, I think that's a successful season. But I do think that window is only 2 years big. I think it's 2024 and 2025. Messi's contract runs through 2025. So it is, they really have, actually I think his ends maybe mid 2025. So I don't know. But they really only have this year and next year if they're going to win MLS Cup. Now they might be able to win it again after that at some point when they bring in new talent and like she said, kind of rotate and bring in new stuff. But if you're talking about winning MLS Cup with this team, with these players, it's got to be this year or next year. But I do think a successful season is something they've never done before. Challenge for the top half of the table, make the playoffs for your second time in history, and challenge for a Supporter Shield.
Yeah, I think this is one of the teams that puts their eggs in a couple of baskets. I think they pick and choose, right? Because, like you said, the aging players is obviously a concern. Suarez is no ripe apple. Neither is Messi. Neither is Busquets. Neither is Alba. So you're going to have a lot of guys sit at certain points, and it's going to be a shame because people are going to spend a lot of money for tickets again, and they won't play. But I would say, Jordan, I would go even higher. And I know that you said they're not really proven in the league, but when you have Lionel Messi, I can't believe we're talking about that. I was just smiling as you were talking about Lionel Messi because I can't believe we're talking about Lionel Messi in our league. But I've got higher expectations, and I think a successful season, seriously, with all the talent that they have, I would say a top 3 spot. I think not crazy higher than yours, but a top 3 spot. Because I'm looking at the top 3, and it's kind of shifting ever so much. I think the Union are kind of on that tail end of their window, so I'm not sure they're as high anymore. I would, kind of looking at the standing, I'd say even Orlando and Columbus aren't better than Miami right now if they're healthy. So I'm going to say top 3 just to be safe. I would say a successful season would be top 3. Now, fans are going to say, no, a successful season is MLS Cup, Champions League, two trophies at least. Like, I don't see it that way because I don't think they're going to attack it that way. I think they're going to pick and choose. And I think MLS Cup will be the one that they pick.
That's the main one.
Yes. Yep. Because they've already got a Leagues Cup. They don't really need that. I think that feels kind of like CONCACAF. So CONCACAF would be cool. Let's get there next year.
I think they
So-
will want to try to win the CONCACAF Champions League. I think
so?
that they will. I think they will put everything forward for that first half of the season, because you can,
Yeah.
and then turn it on at the end of the season to get to the playoffs if they're not in a playoff spot, or if they're in a playoff spot to get higher in the seeding, and then they'll
Okay.
try to put it together again for the MLS Cup run.
You
I don't
convinced
think they're
me.
going to worry
Yeah.
about Supporter Shield. I don't think they're going to worry about that. I think they're going to go out there and say all the eggs in the
CONCACAF
basket for
League, or-
CONCACAF Champions League, and then
Yeah.
all the eggs in the basket for MLS Cup, and we're going to try to run it. Doesn't mean they'll do it, but I think that's how they'll approach it.
Yeah, you convinced me. I think you're right, because the time period too makes sense.
Yeah.
Because CONCACAF's early.
You can slack off in the league
Yeah.
for a little bit. We've talked
Yes,
about
you
it
can.
before. You can kind of slack off.
And you get that whole month now in between, because you've got is that every other year that they're doing, or is it every year? Are they doing the Leagues Cup? Is that every
Yeah,
year?
Leagues Cups this year. Yep.
Oh my gosh, I thought it was every other year.
Nope. Every
Okay.
year, every summer.
So then, yeah, then that's perfect. Yeah, you pick, and they've already won that. And U.S. Open,
Yeah,
they're not
I would.
even playing.
Yeah, if you already won it, I mean, you can just play your subs. You know,
Good
at
point.
that point.
Good point.
All right, let's move on from Miami and talk Chicago Fire. All right, the Fire have collected 40 points for the first time since 2019. Did it feel like it? Not really. From another point of view, the Fire got worse by finishing 13th in the East after finishing 12th in the previous years. So what that shows you is the quality of the East grew, right? They were in 12th the year before and didn't have 40 points. They get 40 points this year. They finished 13th, right? So it is tough. It shows you how much it is grown and how tougher the East is. They missed MLS Cup playoffs. Logan, is this your note here? So it looked like another typical Chicago Fire season.
No, that is
Okay.
not. No, that is a stolen note. That's not
Okay.
my note. But I agree.
Ezra Hendrickson got fired. Frank Klopas came back. And he is back, right? Isn't he back again now?
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
they
back.
brought
Yeah,
back
he's back.
Klopas again from interim to total head coach. What do we think of them last year? What if we're grading Chicago Fire? What are we looking at here?
Dumpster
Maybe we
fire.
calling their parents?
Dude, we're calling their parents. They're out there burning stuff in the courtyard. I don't know what they're doing. Jordan, they are so underwhelmed. Like, Jordan, they're that kid that, like, you're smart, man. You're better than this. You're better than this. You've got the resources. You got people that care about you. Chicago fans are nuts, right, Andrew? No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But I'm a Cubs fan, so I can say that. But yeah, no, Jordan, they are the kid that in class, he's the one that has the intelligence. I think they just don't apply themselves. That's what I'm going to call the Fire. So I'm going to say a D- because I think there's some room for improvement for the Fire, and I think they've got some good pieces, but they need to get
That's
rid
funny.
of some
That's
of
what I
those.
wrote down. D-.
Look at us.
We've been pretty lock and step on all of these, I think. I don't think we've given a
Yeah, we
different
haven't really
grade
strayed.
yet.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. I mean, look, it could have been more disastrous. A wooden spoon. They could have been bottom. But they fired their coach. They did get 40 points, but again, it knocked them down a peg, standings-wise. So that is, of course, a D-. They could have been better. They sucked. D-. I mean, they missed the playoffs by how many points? 3. So
3.
it wasn't terrible.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't think there's ever going to be a team that's like outside of the playoffs that gets like a C or higher, unless if it's a team like Miami that made big signings and won a trophy. Neither of which Chicago did. So D-.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's look at their 2024 season here. So they have brought in a left back, Andrew Gutman, center back Tobias Salquist, and a right back Alan Aragoni. And you add that on top of Frank Klopas, my God, you are looking at quite a season. All right, so let's move on from him. But so yeah, Chris Mueller, Federico Navarro, you said. Other than that, we're still waiting for fans to show up. We're still waiting for Klopas to get fired and then come back again next year. Right. Not much. Kellen Acosta is rumored to go here. LAFC did say he's not coming back. So there's that.
Be a good fit. They need defense, and that's one of the best central defensive men in the league.
Yeah, I don't know. This Chicago team doesn't do anything for me. Looking at their players here,
have they ever since Bastian was there?
No. I think I thought they could have been better before, but I don't know. Yeah. Chris Mueller doesn't do much for me. Then you still have like Shabilko on the team.
Tom Barlow. That's wild.
Yeah.
Shaqiri's like, basically
Acosta doesn't do anything coming into this team. Like he's not gonna so for me, I don't know. What would be a successful season for Chicago Fire? Because
I've got this one.
I would of course say wildcard would be wildly successful, but
you're going nice.
I think it has to be wildcard for them to be successful. I'm sorry. They missed out by 3 points. They have some stuff going on. So, I mean, I don't know. I think I'll go wildcard playoff. That's nice.
Yeah, because I was going totally brutal on this one. I think a successful season is avoiding the 14th place in the conference.
Avoiding 14th.
Above 14th. Because they're not better than any of those other teams, I don't think, up there.
I'm glad you changed that to above 14th, because if you said avoiding 14th and they got 15th, I was technically right. That's a success.
Could have. Avoiding the 14th position in the Eastern Conference. And by that, I mean they better finish above that. I don't think they will, Jordan. I don't. Spoiler alert. There's 2 teams, man, and we just talked about one. They're awful. They're bad. And they're not going to have that goalkeeper very long.
No.
Brady's gone. Same thing with Gaga. This place just breeds top goalkeepers and then sends them packing.
I could see that.
Nothing's exciting about this team.
No.
Their DPs are awful. I don't get it.
And it is bad in the sense of, I mean, this was a team, again, that used to be able to bring over some of those players. Blanco, when Blanco was here. Oh my God. Yeah. They had Bastian Schweinsteiger, right? It's compare that to what they're rolling out now. And they don't even get the young player that it's the sexy player of we get this Argentine that's 20 years old. They don't even get those. They're just here's some guy, we made him a DP, and you're like, great, that's awesome.
Yeah, thank you for that. That was fun. Yeah. Yep.
All right, let's look at DC United. So they had what a hell of a year last year.
Yeah.
In a worst way. They, brought over Christian Benteke for, I think he had come over in 2022. He didn't have a full season. He had it last year. Of course, they had Wayne Rooney starting the season as manager. Taxi Fountas had to get kicked off the team.
Yeah. Mateus Click showed up. We thought that was great.
Yes, Click came up. I don't know. This team, I think, can be good.
Fair.
But last year, they
Not
really
good.
weren't. There had times where I was like, I think they can do it. I think they can get in there. Now, again, they only missed it by 3 points. Wayne ended up leaving, right? And then they have a lot of players that they're losing going into the offseason here. But let's go ahead and give them the report card from last year. I have them at just regular D, not D minus. I have them at D.
Yeah, I think a D.
I think they should have been playoffs last year. I think they should have made it with their coach, with their players, but they fell short.
Yeah, last year they put together, if you guys remember, they put together that team of veterans, right? So they had Santos, then they brought in Click, they had Benteke, they had good pieces, Birnbaum, like Bono. I thought they had good pieces, Tyler Miller, and it was just kind of piecemeal, and that's what it would have been. Like they were below average, like they were below average players playing at a below average clip, and I thought that was ultimately how they performed. And I think we were really excited about just the prospect of some of these players playing together, but ultimately it didn't work out. I think Wayne Rooney always kind of had his mind, I guess, on going back to England, and because I think he had his mind there, the focus wasn't completely on this team, and I think they were still trying to find some young pieces to slot in with some of these veterans that were exciting that you could make do with, and I just think that it fell short. So I don't know if going forward they're looking at maybe keeping some of these veteran pieces around. You look like Pedro Santos. You look at Christian Benteke, who I think could be better. I don't think he quite had the impact I thought they thought he would have, where he'd kind of explode in MLS and coming into this new league and really kind of dominating, because I thought there was a good chance that he could, because he played so well coming off the bench for a lot of those teams in the EPL. And then Mateus Click, I think that was a big signing. We were really excited about that one. I remember when we talked about it just before the season started, when it happened, and I thought, this could be a big needle mover, but it ended up not being. And so that's where DC United fell apart, and Taxi Founces being kicked off the team. I mean, that just an alienation of fans and teams, and really just never coming to fruition for this team. It was a shame because of how successful he had been leading up into this last season, where he just kind of fell off and then completely fell out of the league. It's amazing that they lasted as long as they did with him, just because it sounded like he was just not a good fit at all. So, yeah, I don't know. I think this DC United team really does have some interesting pieces, ones that they can move forward with. I know Teddy, KDP, baby, pretty good little talent, like a young kid that could come out and really make some noise, I think, in the Eastern Conference, and is exciting. So I think they found at least some young blood to fit into this lineup. But ultimately, it just felt like the veteran pieces, the wheels kind of fell off, and they were stumbling in with flat tires. So in doing so, they got rid of a ton of players. Brandon Hines-Ike gone, Eric Hurtado gone, Andy Nahar gone, Donovan Pines gone, Derek Williams gone, Yamil Assad gone, Eric Davis, Jose Fajardo, he's gone. So they got rid of pretty much all their veteran depth, and now this team is looking forward to 2024, and I think they're going to continue to cut some excess fat and get rid of some of these players. So I'm interested to see what they do. They got Ruan also left, Chris Durkin. I forgot, the list goes on and on. I had to scroll down to see those. Dude, they've got rid of everybody, and there's still some nice veteran pieces left. I think the veteran pieces that are left, though, if they do cut some of it, I think it would be like a Pedro Santos. If a Benteke doesn't really pan out this year like they thought he would, make that big splash, then I think that's where they go. But ultimately, Jordan, this team is kind of in a retool, but I think is a promising retool.
Yeah, you get a GM, right? You get a brand new GM, you get a brand new coach, Troy Lissin, right? And now you remove some of that fat, right? Before we were kind of keeping a lot of those players around, even when it was different coaches and different leadership. And
Yeah.
now it's like, let's start fresh. We have some of them still around, but we're cutting off a bunch of them. This GM, this coach get to kind of mold this team however they want. This is a project, right? I can't put any sort of expectation that they have to make the playoffs or anything. This is a brand new start. It should be, for me, what I would do is like, just don't finish last again. I know we do a few of those, but it's like when you lose 13 players and you're bringing in 8 that have to kind of like really, fit in with either the team or have to adjust to a league, or some of them just have to move from one league team in the league to the other. It can take some time. So I would go ahead and say, like, let the project build. I would love to see an increase from last year, but that's not always the case. So I will go ahead and say expectations, they have to just not be last, and they have to show some sort of improvement, maybe like on the pitch, but maybe that doesn't always equal results.
Yeah. They add Jared Stroud, they add Aaron Herrera. Like, those are decent MLS pieces. Jared Stroud, I thought, was pretty decent for St.
They
Louis
got
last year.
Rouen too from Montreal, right?
No, they sent him to.
Oh, they sent
Yeah,
him.
they
That's
sent
right.
him.
That's right.
Sorry,
It's
he's in the wrong.
Herrera. Sorry.
Yeah, it looked. Yeah, it's the trade that they made for Herrera.
They got Rouen like mid-season last year.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think they got some really good pieces coming in to kind of help as far as good MLS experience and successful MLS experience. Aaron Herrera has been pretty decent. So yeah, I think expectations going forward. I mean, I think they do still need some spots to fill. Kind of a number 6 or game changing winger that can kind of come in and set Christian Benteke up, because he's useless if he's not in service. He's not one that's going to create really that much at his feet. He's not that kind of striker. He is one that likes to be set up. He's like a goal hawk. Like the guy is a fox in the box. He just always had that nose for the ball when it was delivered to him. But yeah, no, I think a successful season, like you said, Jordan. I think seeing improvement, but I think this team needs that infusion of youth, which I think so many teams in MLS lack sometimes, and we see what happens as a result. I think you see that with Portland, like you saw that with Portland. The result of that is a lot of injuries, a lot of times missed, a lot of injury management, a lot of good but not great. So yeah, I'm going to go expectations. I'm going to say nicer. Not. I think finishing within striking distance of the playoffs would be a successful season for the team.
And I know that sounds probably hypocritical because they were 3 points out of the playoffs, which is striking distance. But again, they're going through a lot more change here. They, we're trying to give Rooney a full season, and his, from his little boost that he gave them after the Losada stuff. But, it didn't work. And, now you have to kind of reboot again. So a little bit of a lesser expectations after that. But yeah, a lot of players gone now that were like part of the team for so long that, I'm sitting here looking at like Hurtado, Nahar, right? Andy Nahar, contract option declined, right? Trading Rouen to Montreal, trading Chris Durkin, Derek Williams, Donovan Pines. Like, these are some play. Yes, Assad even.
Yamil Assad's been there forever.
Yeah. It's crazy. Okay. Let's go ahead and go to our last team in this episode, which is NYCFC. Falling on hard times. They won in 2021 in MLS Cup. 2022 was okay. 2023, a big step down as they missed the playoffs for the first time since their inaugural season in 2015. So what would you grade a season like this, right? This is a team that was perennially in the hunt, and last year it just kind of fell apart. And maybe we're looking at, we need a refresh here. I give something like this a D, but what would you give this?
I'm gonna go with an F plus.
F plus. All right.
Yeah, and I say that because last year, and this is 100% down to City Football Group and the way that they've handled this team. Jordan, they were, like you said, they're perennial visits to the playoffs. Like it's unbelievable. Like they were a team that they were constantly in the fold. They were constantly one of the top teams. They were always that snake in the grass that was going to get the big signing because of where they play. Finally, Jordan, we get an announcement for their stadium. That's why I give them the F plus. They got up off the F minus because the F plus. Because I would have graded them more harshly than that. In winter of 2023, Jordan, they said farewell to their starting goalkeeper, 2 fullbacks, the defender of the year, caliber left center back, their legendary number 10, their best number 9. It pretty much was them just gutting the roster. And I remember sitting here for their previews, and you and I were like, I don't know what to do with this team. They have a bunch of like, this guy might show up, this guy might be signed. And that was like right before the season. I think that was even the big season preview where you're like, this team still has, 8 different holes. So I don't know what they're going to do. And it showed. And I think Nick Cushing, bless him for taking another role, another year in this role, to be their head coach and continue this. Tice Magno, I think, is on his way out. I think I saw a bunch of links to Europe. I think Bologna wanted him. I think that's who he was connected with. So Tice Magno, their left winger, who's a star, is going to leave and head elsewhere. So now what? They're looking at Santiago Rodriguez, Keaton Parks, James Sands to invigorate this team in the attack that really did struggle in the attack last year. They don't have that number 9 that gets you excited. They don't have any wingers anymore. Like, man, Freeze is a backup goalkeeper, I think, in this league. Sorry. But I don't know, man. I reflecting on last year, like I can't help but give them anything but an F plus, and I don't think it's gotten much better. And we'll kind of talk about that now, but this is not I would not feel comfortable if I was an NYCFC fan.
No, yeah, I don't think they like. We kind of rail the New York teams all the time, right? Like, and kind of get on Galaxy's back as well recently. But these are teams. If you're owned by City Football Group, you can afford to bring in some people. I don't care about the roster machinations because apparently Miami doesn't care about them either. If you can bring in Busquets, Alba, Messi, and Luis Suarez to Miami without breaking any roster rules, which is what we got to think has happened here, then New York can do the same. New York is one of the biggest cities in the world, owned by City Football Club. You need to tell me they can't figure out how to bring big stars over here? What? I know they just won it 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 seasons ago. But it is really mind-boggling how far they've fallen off since then. And this is a team that was coming into this market to try to take advantage of Red Bulls being in Jersey and say, we are the New York team. And then they've proceeded to do the same thing Red Bulls did. So they brought in big stars, and now they've moved on from them, and they have no one of significance when it comes to worldwide marketability. So now you're just Red Bulls 2.0 if you're NYCFC. And yes, you've actually won the thing. Congratulations. But you should be a team that's constantly pushing for that. What moves have they made? Nothing that gets you excited right now, Where's their Pirlo or David Villa, which were really good signings for them. The Lampard signing didn't work out as much. but where's the David Villa signing, the big star that's going to come over and actually put you on their back? You lost Tati Castellanos in 2022. They haven't really replaced his production. I don't know. I look at this team and I just think, okay, I don't know what you want me to think about you, right? Like, I just don't really understand what their plan is. I just don't get it, right? They bring in Andres Pereira from the Union. He barely got into the Union side. Is he really going to do much in NYCFC? I don't know, right? They bring in James Sands back from who was at Rangers for a little bit last year. So he came back last year. All right, great. But it didn't help them tremendously last year, right? Mid-season, they had Julian Fernandez. All right, great. There you got a young player. But overall, I just don't see what this team is going to do. I know some people will say, well, like, it's not always about stars. Bring in just good quality players to win and stuff. Yes, but when you're also just like NYCFC and you talked such a big game when Red Bulls were failing to like make a lasting impact in New York, you're not making a lasting impact in New York either. I'm guessing they're waiting for their stadium to be done is what I would guess. And then they'll maybe make a splash. That way you don't have like Neymar starting for you on a baseball field. But I don't know. It's just mind-boggling. I really wish this team that talked such a big game before entering this league was actually doing something again.
Yeah. I love that when you said that this team has a team of nobody that has any kind of worldwide marketability. That's going to be a TikTok. It's true. Like this is supposed to be true. They're building a new stadium. I do wonder, Jordan, if City Football Group is actually now, for the first time, and as a City fan, this hurts to say, feeling the pressure of what might come from the sanctions that has been brought forward that could relegate Manchester City. Because if that happens, then yeah, I could see why all of a sudden we're now in a halt. And they're like, oh, shoot. Which is maybe why. Could you imagine, Jordan, if that happens and now we're stuck with NYCFC, they'll stop building that stadium. Who knows what will happen if they'll try to liquidate and get rid of that team and sell them to somebody else. Like, I'm interested.
Do you think that's possible with sanctions on City? You think that's
possible? It sounds like it's got definitely more legs than it usually does, their sanctions. Now, I'm not saying that it'll happen because it typically won't with City. But it does sound like the sanctions being brought forward right now or have a little bit more steam to them that they're going to have to extinguish. So maybe, I don't know. I being a City fan, I've always been in the era of like, no, they're not going to get to them because I really do think they keep a pretty clean and tight ship. So figuring this stuff out, I think people just like to accuse. But who knows, right? Because it's never happened. And if it maybe they're skeezy enough to where they can pay it off. But I don't know. I have no idea. As a fan, I've never felt like it was going to happen. This time it seems to pop up a lot more than it usually does.
I would love that. I don't mean wouldn't liquidate the team. What would happen is they would end up finding a buyer because it is a single entity team.
That's true.
And I want them to do the same thing to Red Bull. I don't want feeder clubs in this league. I want clubs that have identity. Bring back Metro Stars for New York. NYCFC come out with some other name other than NYCFC. Different ownership. You could probably keep the name, but like maybe rebrand the.
They might even become Brooklyn at some point because I think that's where their stadium, right? Or Queens. I think
it's going to be in Queens, yeah. So it'll be the Queens Spider-Man.
Yeah, Queens is way cooler. Yeah, Queens is way cooler. The Queen's Queen. Like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So I don't know. I feel like. There you go. So what's a successful season for this club?
Oof.
I don't want to spend too much time on them, but
I would say a successful season. Gosh, this one's tough. I'm going to say don't finish bottom 3 in the league.
Don't finish bottom 3. I think that's too easy for them. I think playoffs. They have to be back in the playoffs. This is what you missed it only once before last season. Red Bulls somehow have that streak still going alive. NYCFC, to be successful this season, you got to be back in that playoff. There's 9 teams allowed. 9 teams allowed in the playoffs out of 15. You cannot be one of the 6 if you're NYCFC and if you're serious about competing in this league. So, especially when you have Toronto, Chicago, and DC rebuilding and all them below you, you should be able to get in. Charlotte's going to fall off. Maybe. We'll see. We'll talk about them next week. Okay, anything else about any of these teams? Did we cover everything?
Yeah, I mean, I think we got through all of it. I'm really excited about Miami. I think, as everybody else is, we're excited to see what it looks like on the field in the season and the longevity of this team. Because I think, like you said, Jordan, it seems to be a 2-year window. I hope more, because I hope he wants to play here until MLS and the break for World Cup. But if it's 2 years of this, Jordan, I'm excited, because I think we're going to get to see some really cool stuff happen.
And here's what I'll say to all the people that are tired of hearing about Messi in Miami, okay? Just enjoy it, all right? Because you can't lose in this situation. Here's what I mean. Either Messi and his team does well, and all eyes continue on that, and you get to see the best player of all time win stuff over here, or it hysterically falls apart and you can bask in the failure. So you really can't lose if you just either enjoy the success or if you bask in the failure. So, just think of it that way, and you'll have a good time no matter what happens.
Good point.
Because I'm sure some will think it's hysterical if they lose. I mean, I probably think it's hysterical if they lose too at some point. But at first I'd be like a little disappointed this team didn't do well. But looking back at it at times, you'd probably be like, that was pretty funny. They put out all that money and they still sucked. It can work both ways for you. So look, just appreciate we're able to land Messi, and it wasn't everybody going to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
And hopefully sometime soon we get Antoine Griezmann. He keeps talking about wanting to come over here.
That would be fun.
All right. So next episode, we're going up the ladder of the West, which would mean we are going to be covering Real Salt Lake, Vancouver, Dallas, SKC, and San Jose Quakes. So make sure you're ready to talk and listen to us break down those 5 teams next episode. Hoping to have a guest on to talk one of them like we've been doing for these first 2. And just give us your feedback on how those guest spots are doing. We think that they've been working really well. We get them for about 15 minutes. We ask them the top questions we have. We don't hold them on too long. We're not doing hour-long breakdowns anymore for preseason. We can't do 29 hours of this. So give us feedback for that. Give us any feedback of something you think we missed. We'll try to get to it in the season preview before the season kicks off. We're actually only like less than 2 weeks away from CONCACAF Champions Cup kicking off, but that only kicks off for Vancouver on the MLS side. And then the rest of the MLS teams are later in the month of February, around the same time as the season kicks off. All right. Thank you all for watching and listening. Make sure you like and subscribe if you enjoyed what we're doing here. You can follow us at Stateside Show on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Threads, and TikTok. Yeah.
Look at that.
We're on Kesha's app over there. And so we're trying to be everywhere and anywhere at the same time. Make sure you rate and review us on iTunes and Spotify. Have a great rest of your week. We will catch you next time when we talk the next bottom 5 of the West, the middle 5. I don't know what we want to call that, but the next step up from the bottom 5. as two of those are playoff teams, actually, that we will talk about next episode.